Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1666. Today we're playing with vintage Ferraris, restoring vintage Ferraris, and driving vintage Ferraris. It's going to be fun. Sit back, here we go.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. I'm very revved up and very excited today to be talking to a guest calling in from Appleton, Wisconsin, by the name of Dustin Wetmore. Hey, Dustin, welcome to Cars Yeah. Are you buckled up and ready for a fun ride?
I am indeed, Mark. Let's get rolling.
All right, we'll have some fun. We're going to be talking about cool old Italian cars, specifically Ferraris today. But before I give you a proper introduction, Dustin, I want you to share one little thing that most people don't know about you.
I would say the most common thing that people don't know about me is I have some non-automotive racing history.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, several years ago, I decided I wanted to quit smoking cigarettes, and the most practical way to do it for me was to create a habit that was completely opposite of that. So I started running, and that running led to instead of running races like 5Ks, 10Ks, and half marathons, I went straight to a triathlon.
Oh my gosh.
So I got 2 of those under my belt, and then I started doing running races. And so far I've got probably 24 half marathons and a dozen or so 10Ks, dozen or so 5Ks, and then I've done 2 fulls and then about 5 regular triathlons.
Wow. Well, congratulations, first and foremost, for making a major change in your life to become healthy. That's tremendous. My father-in-law smoked for many, many years. And I remember my wife and I were pregnant. Well, she was pregnant, but I guess I kind of was. I was responsible, at least, with our first child. And she made a comment to her dad. She goes, "Dad, you really can't smoke around the new baby." And he thought that meant that he wasn't even going to be able to see the baby unless he stopped smoking. He totally misunderstood it. And she'd been her mom had been trying to get him to quit for years. He was in the Marine Corps for 35 years and, the people around him smoked and everything. And so he just quit one day. And her mom said, "Hey, you haven't smoked today." And he goes, "Well, I decided to quit so I could see the grandchild."
What's ironic about that is my mom told me that her dad, my grandfather, did the exact same thing.
Wow.
That's uncanny.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it was the greatest thing. And he did say it was the hardest thing he's ever done in his life. And this guy was a very tough Marine. I mean, he'd done a lot of things, 3 tours of duty and active duty in Vietnam. But it was the best thing ever. I mean, you could just see in the first year the major changes just to his physical appearance.
Oh, sure.
His teeth, his skin, his eyes. And he said one day, "I can smell my food."
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Yeah, so?" And he goes, "No, you don't understand. I haven't smelled food in decades."
That's all accurate. That was easily one of the hardest things that I've done. It took, all said and done, it took 3 years of working at it to gradually wean myself away. But yeah, the physical changes, you feel better, you can breathe better, you taste, you smell, your clothes don't smell, your cars don't smell. It's an easy habit to begin, and it's a difficult habit to break.
Well, I really take my hat off to you. I've never been a smoker, so I don't know how hard that would be. But the fact that you did it the way you did it, you decided, okay, what's the opposite of sitting and smoking? Running and breathing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome, Dustin. Just fantastic. Yeah, really, really proud of you. There are any of you listeners out there that are still smoking, this guy, give him a call. He'll help you walk you through a very important change in your life. Let me give you a proper introduction here. We're going to dive into some questions. Dustin Wetmore is a Ferrari expert at Motion Products, where they care for and restore award-winning classic cars. Founded over 30 years ago in rural Wisconsin, MPI has become one of the world-renowned names for all things when it comes to classic Italian cars. With hundreds of awards, he and his talented team have restored over 500 fine automobiles. Dustin started working with cars a year out of high school, first in car audio, and then as a mechanic for Skip Barber Racing School. He attended tech school, worked at dealerships, and then he met a very cool guy who I had the honor of meeting once as well, Wayne Obry, who was the founder of Motion Products. And it was there he found his true passion, and he grew with the company in his skills and his duties. He's a senior Ferrari Club of America judge, researcher, and current secretary of the International Advisor Council for the Preservation of the Ferrari Automobiles, just to name a few things that keep his dance card busy. We'll be back in a minute to talk with Dustin more, but first a word from our valued sponsors that make Cars Yeah possible. Give them a little love, and when we come back, we're talking cool Ferraris. Sit tight. Did you know that Covercraft is much more than car covers? They offer protection for the inside of your vehicles as well. No matter what kind of vehicle you drive, Covercraft makes a floor mat, a cargo area protection product just for your vehicle. Their plush, custom-fit floor mats turn any ride into something special. Their premier Berber custom floor mats, which are a favorite of mine if you want something very stylish and unique for your favorite ride. They also have Weather Shield floor liners that provide ultimate protection for heavy dirt, mud, snow, and slush. Their Carhartt custom cargo liners not only look great, but keep your rear cargo area and seats protected from the kids, the pets, or whatever's going on back there. Do you have a pet that destroys your vehicles? Covercraft has you covered for that too, with a wide variety of pet protection options. Is your vehicle getting a little long in tooth? There's no better way to give it a new car look than with a custom-fit floor and trunk mat. I replace mine every few years with something a little different, just for fun. All your options are easy to clean, they secure to the floor, and they look oh so good. Don't forget your trunk too. Custom-fit trunk liners for sedans, coupes, and SUVs are perfect to protect the factory carpet from all those things that can stain, tear, and damage your carpets. Check out covercraft.com for the huge number of styles, colors, and options that you'll love. And I've got a deal for you here at Cars Yeah. If you use the YEAH120 code at covercraft.com, you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order on me. Go to covercraft.com, use the code YEAH120 at checkout and get 10% off today. Covercraft, they've got you covered. My favorite collector car magazine is Keith Martin's Sports Car Market. I've been a subscriber for decades. Sports Car Market is the Wall Street Journal for enthusiasts and collectors. It's your monthly must-read, whether you dream of owning a collector car, maybe you have two, or maybe you've got 200. Sports Car Market has been around for 31 years, and it's filled with valuable articles, intelligent write-ups, and the latest auction sales. Go to sportscarmarket.com and subscribe today. Here's a couple deals I have for you just for listening here on Cars Yeah. If you use the checkout code Cars Yeah, you'll receive a 50% discount on your digital subscription at Sports Car Market. That's an exclusive offer from Cars Yeah. And guess what? Here's another deal. If you'd like to get the actual magazine, use the code BSH for buy, sell, hold. That's code BSH, and you'll get $10 off your annual print subscription. That's right, $10 off. Both of these are exclusive offers here at Cars Yeah for Sports Car Market Magazine. Just go to sportscarmarket.com and get your deals today. So what do you do after running a race team for 27 years with over 100 podiums, multiple Daytona wins, and a win at Le Mans? Well, if you're a racer and the Racers Group team owner Kevin Buckler, you found Adobe Road Winery. Located in Petaluma, California, he and his team have created a winning combination with the Racing Series, 4 ultra-premium red wine blends that are in a class of their own. Like racing, these wines comprise of art, precision, engineering, science, all wrapped in a whole lot of fun. You can choose from 4 blends titled Redline, Apex, Shift, and the 24. Today I'm going to talk about the 24. This wine earned 91 plus points from Robert Parker's Wine Advocate. It's a dark, spicy, and velvety blend with ripe blue and black fruits and very smooth tannins. The label features a 3-dimensional full metal chronograph in a bright gold finish that pays homage to the Daytona Rolex winners receive at Le Mans. The Racing Series is a fantastic gift for the ultimate enthusiast in your life. And I've got a deal for you today. If you use the code CARS, yeah, all one word, all in caps, when you're at the AdobeRoadWinery.com checkout, you get $10 off any purchase of wines from the racing series. Your wine ships promptly and arrives quickly right at your door. Use the code CARSYEAH at checkout to get $10 off your purchase of the racing series today. There's always a seat at the table for excellence with the racing series. Go to Adobe Road Wines today and use the code CARSYEAH at checkout. Cheers! All right, Dustin, as we continue on this journey we call your very cool life, I would love for you to share a success quote or a mantra, some kind of saying that has meaning for you. It's a nice way to get the inspirational tire smoking a little bit here on Cars Yeah. Dustin, I know you've driven a lot of cool things, so grab the wheel.
Well, I've got two of them.
Okay.
One of them is really a personal mantra that resonated with me when I was quite young. It's no matter where you go, there you are. For me, there isn't any real direct correlation to any feeling or thought or experience. It's really more, it launches something to be, it means to be introspective. So all of my experiences and responsibilities and decisions and everything have brought me to where I am right now, whether I thought I was ready for them or not. And you can't shed that. So, if you made some bad decisions here and there, you have to choose to learn from that and move forward, or you have to choose to carry that on your back. And that saying for me sums up those feelings. And that just, oddly enough, I heard the line in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Oh, really? No
Yeah.
kidding. Wow.
I've heard it tied to Confucius. I don't know if that's true or not, but I heard it. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. That makes sense. So, yeah.
For you, does that quote have something to do with making the most of where you are at that time and not taking it for granted?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. There are a lot of times, I remember specifically working here at Motion as a mechanic, and I was really struggling with something. It was engine related, and I was getting frustrated, and I just took a step back. I looked at the black wrinkled cam cover, and I thought, this isn't a Volkswagen Jetta. You get to struggle with this until you figure it out. It's okay. You're going to be fine. And then after that, I just worked through the problem and it was fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Dustin, Tommy Kendall's been a guest here on the show twice. He actually interviewed me on my 1000th show. And he had a similar kind of quote. He says, it's similar, and I'm paraphrasing, wherever you find yourself right now, you're in the right place. And that meaning kind of tied into the fact that even if you're in a bad place, because he had that horrific accident that brought him out of racing and took him into a new career, he said there's a reason for that. There's a reason you find yourself in this place right now, but don't worry about it. It's the right place to be for you right now, which kind of tied to what you just said a little bit.
Oh, sure. It really does. There's ways that you can work yourself through anxiety or work yourself up with anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's easier to work out of it than in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you said there was a second quote or mantra. Do you want to share that with us?
I do. Yeah, it's more of a professional one. There's a gentleman named Stephen Costello that I believe you interviewed a couple of years ago. He's a motorsports consultant that we work with quite frequently on some of our more competition-based projects they're more geared towards modern racing. And he had always said, when in doubt, ask. It's super simple, but in practice, it can be difficult because there are certain instances where you're working with your peers or your superiors, and you don't want to come across as being maybe ignorant or maybe not as educated or as sharp as you want to present yourself to be. But in a lot of cases, that's okay. It's better to admit that you don't know something and then learn something than it is to act as if and then get in trouble and then have to try to rewind from that.
Oh, absolutely. I always say, if you don't know the answer to something, say, I don't know that answer, but I'll get it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, instead of kind of whatting your way through the answer and then people smelling that and going, guy doesn't know what he's talking about. It destroys all your credibility moving forward, which is completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
I think it was even the gentleman who started and founded Virgin Airlines and Virgin Records has a quote is, if someone asks you to do something and you don't know how to do it, Tell them you'll figure it out, and then go do that and figure it out. Don't tell them, I don't know how to do that. You never know where that will take you. And that kind of is a nice segue into what you do at your career there, because you've worked your way through all sorts of different aspects from the beginning guy to probably sleeping on the floor. Maybe you did that too, sweeping the floors and then working through. So tell us a lot more about, now I know a lot about MPI, Motion Products Incorporated, but tell our listeners more about all the fun and fantastic vehicles you and your team, a very talented team, by the way, get to work on, because you guys are so renowned in this industry.
Well, it's good to hear that positive feedback is definitely traveling, because we do work hard to provide our clients with excellent products at the end of the day. There's a couple of different ways that we have to look at it too, because we are, after all, a business. We have to look after the business case that our client has brought us, and if that means that it's a dollar not to exceed, we have to find a way to budget that project to that dollar. Whereas we also have the alternate where it's, just, I need it done to this quality level, do what you need to do, and we'll talk about it when we're done. So there's that aspect, but then we also have to balance that with authenticity and overall quality. So not only do our cars have to appear authentic, feel authentic, look authentic, but they also have to work, and you have to be able to get into that car, fire it up, and it has to make all the right noises, and it has to perform, it has to steer, stop, and go straight in a line without vibrating. So it takes, in order to work on some of these marks at this level and consistently produce restorations that are award winning nearly out of the box, it takes a lot of dedication from an incredibly talented group of people. I'm blown away a lot by how nonchalant some of these guys are, where it's just ingrained in them. It's just what you do. This is how you do it.
Yeah, it's incredible to me. And let me ask you this, when it comes to what you've seen in changes in the restoration world, especially at the high level and the caliber of the cars that you do, has there been a shift in, let's say, the last 10 years of not only cars being restored, but more so the way they're being restored, how they're being restored, and how collectors are looking at these vehicles? Because you see it on the lawns at places like Pebble Beach, Amelia, and all the other great Concours events, even around the world. There's a lot going on, and has been for about that time period, in preservation versus what we now call over-restoration in many cases.
There really has. The first and foremost, the term restoration, I think, is still up for, in some circles, up for debate as to what that really is.
Sure.
The way that we look at a full restoration is where you dismantle that car down to the last needle bearing, and every single piece that comes off gets attention or service down to that last needle bearing. And where a restoration may have been just a scuff and shoot paint job and maybe some new carpet and clean the engine bay, that would be considered a freshen up in between services at this point. But then to go to your point about over restoration versus preservation, that's also an ongoing, almost moving target. I know before I got into this, there was a bit of a trend to over restore, where you intentionally made your gaps perfect, and the paintwork was block sanded and wet sanded and polished so that it looked like a piece of glass. That's certainly not the case anymore, especially when you're working with competition cars, and even more specifically competition cars that were built in Italy by various coach builders in the northern region. You have to really dive into how that car was made by the specific coach builder to make sure that you replicate that paint finish, for example, correctly. If, say, for example, you're restoring a car built by Vignale, if it's a coach built car that maybe ended up at Turin or Paris at an auto show, you're going to be serving that car and that car owner to have that paintwork look pretty good. I mean, it's good. They would have block sanded it. They would have wet sanded it and polished the nitrocellulose lacquer. But then you go to the other end of the spectrum and say, let's stick with Vignale. They built the 4 Mexicos, 3 coupes and 1 Spider. The color pictures that we've seen of these cars indicate that they weren't treated to that level of attention, or they weren't overly polished, and they weren't show cars. They were tools. So when we restored 0224 not that long ago, we took that and we went with it when we painted the car. So it's painted in a single stage. It's not base clear, and we did it straight out of the gun. We didn't block sand. We didn't wet sand the finished product. You just basically denibbed it so that it's relatively flat, but it doesn't look like a jewel. But then the counter is you can go to the next coach builder, Pininfarina, for example. They were a little bit more fastidious. The standards were higher. The production quality was a bit greater, and you can kind of work back and forth both ways between it being a little rougher and a little smoother. So those are all things that we have to incorporate in the restoration. And those are things that the judges are really keen on. And there are guys that look specifically for that. There are judges that key in on upholstery, fit and finish, and material type. And then there are judges that key in on the type of paint work, and whether you nickel chromed or flash chromed your trim work, or if you triple plated, if you use copper in the plating process, that's going to affect the final outcome, and that's a factor in authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely. 0224, that's the 340 Mexico, the 1952 Ferrari 340 Mexico. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yep. Ooh, pretty car. Yeah, that was such a unique style on that car, and the fact that it went racing made it even more special.
When you see the car, it's got this weird combination between almost obscurity, brute strength, and then grace. I don't know how Michelota did it, but he managed to encapsulate all of those factors into this. The three coupes are very, very similar. Yeah. I won't say they're identical, because I know Vignale didn't use patterns for anything really other than the windshield. So all three of them would have been subtly different, but they're so unique. And when we restored that car, I kind of got mesmerized by it. When we had it in bare metal, when you just looked at how the car was built, it was fantastic.
I'll bet. It's so beautiful, and the way those fenders kind of pontoon out a bit make it so unique and different as well. Almost like, what's going on here? What was the thought process here? But very, very special vehicle. I love it. Well, one of the things I always like to ask my guests is to share a big challenge in their career, their life, and this is more about how they overcame it, what it taught them, how they came out in a positive way. So take us on one of those trips where life was a bit challenging for you, Dustin.
Well, there are two instances that I can think of. The first would be back in 2015, I want to say. We were presenting cars at the Cavallino Classic, and I ended up presenting 7 cars that morning, back to back. And I've presented cars at most of the shows since then, but it's usually only 1 or 2, sometimes 3, and that's a big morning. I mean, you really got to have the show book ready, and you've got to have all of the points that you want to cover with the judges. It's like, okay, they're going to ask, Donovan's going to ask about that. I know Dick Fritz is going to ask about this, and I don't know about Scott, but so you have to plan for the judges that you have, and you have to have all that in your head. And then to do that 7 times, at the end of it, I was brain dead.
Oh, I can't even imagine the stress. Oh my gosh.
So what that, and I was almost junk for an hour after that. I just had to sit down and have a coffee and just kind of reflect on what just happened, because it felt like I got hit by a train. And my takeaway from it was, be careful to how much you commit to, because you may think that you can handle it. And in fact, you might be able to handle it, and you might in fact get it done. But at what cost? Did you put yourself in a position where you've compromised your own quality standards? Did you put your customer in a position where you didn't give them maybe the best that you could have, so that there's a professional track to that? This particular day, everything ended up pretty well. 6 of the cars hit Platino. One of them did not. It was a 12-year-old restoration, and it was a driver car. So after a while, you just that expectation's a little bit too much. And then one of them was Best of Show GT. So I mean, I did okay. I mean, I got the job done,
yeah.
and everybody was happy. But man, it was a rough morning.
Well, Cavallino is such a wonderful event, but super high pressures, incredible competition with the level of automobiles that come to that event. John and Alicia Barnes do such a wonderful job at Cavallino. I've had the luxury of being at several of those events. I'd love to be able to go every year because it's just and they snuck by the COVID monster early this year. We'll see if they can get away with it again with how things are going in the future, because it always takes place in January, but it's a wonderful event. You mentioned maybe another one you wanted to share, perhaps.
It's this one's this one hits a little bit more personal and professional. It's simultaneously. Mm-hmm. When we lost Wayne, that was a really challenging time for the shop, because we were getting a lot of questions as to, okay, what are you guys going to do? Are you going to keep going? Can you keep going? And the challenge we had was to first grieve the loss of the matriarch of the company and be with his family, and at the same time look after the business that he started. And we got together and like, okay, look, we've been doing things one way. We really need to take a hard look at how we're doing them. Can we sustain the organization the way that it's structured now, or do we need to make some changes? And we chose to, first and foremost, yes, we absolutely have to keep going. Hook or crook, we're going to keep going, because that's what Wayne would want us to do unquestionably. That's what Debbie, his wife, wanted us to do unquestionably. So that was a tough time, because we had to really be honest with ourselves and ask, okay, what you do every day, is that too much? Or is that not enough? Or is that even the right thing? Is your skill set being applied properly? And it wasn't just me asking that question. That was everybody that was at a management level or a team lead level. So there was a good period of I would say a solid 12-month period where we were really looking at ourselves hard and trying to fix the plane while it's flying is the term that we used quite often. And it's tough to do, but that it's been several years now. We've got guys in key places. We've got team leads in all the departments, and we're constantly trying to improve communication, because I don't think you ever get to a point in an organization where that's good enough. I think
no, it's a dynamic that's ever changing and moving, and with personality traits too. I'll tell you, that's a wonderful testament to what Wayne created, and also the people that he brought into the team, and the fact that all of you folks that are still there realize the importance of taking 3 steps back, perhaps looking at what needed to be done, and then being able to carry it forward. Because many times in these shops environments, they're really run by one guy. One guy controls everything. And when that guy's gone or he decides to bail, everything falls apart. But the reality is, when you build a business, you want to be able to build it so it can operate without you being there. That brings the real value to that business. And that's what he did. So kudos. Hats off to Wayne.
Precisely. Yeah. Absolutely. At the time, at the time of Wayne's passing, there were 2 owners, himself and Bill Murphy. Bill still owns a majority share of the company, and he had a second, or he still has, I guess, essentially a second. His name's Jim Waller. He's our GM and essentially our CFO. So Bill was working with Jim and bringing him along and training him to run the business and look at it from 40,000 feet. And then Wayne was training me to handle the technical side of the cars themselves. So to do research, to work with the owners of the cars, to get plugged into the judging community and be able to handle the car end of it. So you have to be able to look at both of those disciplines, the car end and the business end, to have a successful restoration company. And it's that succession planning that I think has put us in a position now to take another good run, and we're planning for decades, not for months.
That's awesome. Well, my hat's off to you. Many small companies don't even have the wherewithal to think about that, much less the concept of it. So you guys definitely are poised for greatness for a long, long time. It's a great thing. It can continue to bring wonder and joy and preserve these wonderful, fantastic cars for all the collectors and their caretakers in the future. So my hat's off to all of you. Let's take a short break and thank our sponsors. When we come back, I want to dive into your personal passion for cars here, Dustin. So we'll just stay seated here in this nice Testarossa or GT or whatever it is we might be at 340 Mexico, and we'll be right back. American Collectors Insurance. That's who now protects my Porsche Turbo, the one I call my Orange Crush. They've been protecting vehicles since 1976. With all the time, effort, and money you've put into your classic vehicles, do you know how much you would receive if yours was stolen, damaged, or totaled in an accident or a fire? Your regular auto insurance carriers won't tell you until after the claim, and more than likely, you'll be in for a rude awakening. With an agreed value policy from American Collectors Insurance, you'll be paid your vehicle's full agreed value. No surprises. So don't just hope for a fair claim settlement. Be certain and know exactly what you'll get with an agreed value policy. I shopped around and decided to protect my car with American Collectors Insurance. Give them a call today for a quote at 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324 and protect the ones you love. Tell them Mark Green at Cars Yeah sent you. That's American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors, folks just like you and me. Let's step away from the conversation to talk about our charity of choice here at Cars Yeah, America's Automotive Trust. America's Automotive Trust is a group of like-minded nonprofits that are working together to preserve and promote car culture across the country. Together, they provide scholarships and grants to aspiring technicians and restoration artists. They provide youth education programs and bring communities together through automotive-related events, car shows, and drives. Among those nonprofits is RPM Foundation, a terrific organization working to keep our favorite collector cars on the road. RPM was created to ensure that the specialized skills needed to care for classic automobiles, boats, and motorcycles continue to be passed down from generation to generation. They do this by supporting training for young people with a passion for restoration and setting them up with mentors who can share their valuable knowledge. So far, they've awarded more than $3.5 million to restoration education projects across 35 states. Incredible! To learn more about RPM or to donate to their mission, visit www.rpm.foundation. You'll be glad you did. All right, Dustin, we're back, and I'd love for you to share a story that instigated this personal passion that you have for cars, that pivotal moment in your life when you knew that you were going to be a bit of a car guy.
Well, leading up to the interview, I had another memory. This was when I was really young. I want to say third or fourth grade. I remember the comic cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
I used to get those, and I was such a young little kid. I didn't really have a concept of what the car hobby was. I liked the artwork and the types of cars that he was drawing, and reading the comics and the situations was really cool. And I thought that was fantastic. And I started sketching these kind of things in school. And so that was my earliest memory of that. But then I think where the hook really got set, so to speak, would be before I started working for Skip Barber Racing. A buddy of mine that I went to high school with, he got a job with them so that he could get a discount on racing. So if you worked for Skip Barber when they were up and running full steam, you could be an employee and you would get a discount on your 3-day racing school, and then you would get a discount on lapping days and then race weekends. And a lot of guys would use that as a means to get into the industry. I wouldn't say backdoor, but it was a nice path so that you could get a step up to the Pro Series. And then from the Pro Series, you would look at Indy Lights or Atlantics, or, if there was some significant talent there, you could go to kart.
Right.
So that's what my buddy was doing. and he said, "Hey, we're just getting started up here at Road America. You should come down and see what's going on." So I had never been to Road America before. That was the first racetrack I'd ever been to. So I show up and I go up to the paddock area where the main pit, the main pit and the front straight are, and they're running a 3-day school, and it had to have been the first day because it was a downshifting exercise.
Nice.
So you've got all these there was like 20 or so. They're Formula Ford chassis, no aero at the time, and then Michelin shredded tires with single cam Chrysler 2-liter engines. They were out of the Neons. Mm-hmm. And you got these cars ripping up the front straight and then braking and downshifting and then coming down the pit lane the opposite way, doing the same thing. So they're just running a loop. And I'm just, I was stood back before I came in when I went to find him, and I'm just watching this whole thing go down. Like, this is awesome. I have no idea what I'm looking at, but this is cool. And you've got all the cars are going through the upward gear changes. They got the super trap exhaust, so it's got a good sound to it. And then you've got the blipping, a lot of grinding because it was they're straight cut gear. Yeah. So I got a huge smile on my face. I remember it was just grinning ear to ear. I'm like, yeah, this is something I think I can do.
I think I can do this. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I think, where I knew I was going to be doing something with cars for my career.
For a long, long time. You mentioned cartoons. That was originally Robert E. Peterson's publication. Started back in 1960. And most recently, I had a guest on, Mark Mathot, and he is now the editor-in-chief of Cartoons. He bought the rights to that. That had pretty much gone defunct. And now he's brought it back, and he's found some of the old artists that did those wonderful drawings and things. So you can actually buy cartoons again. So if you have kids or are going to have kids or kids, or if you're just a big kid like I am and Dustin, you can still get your hands on those and have some fun. What was your first really special car in your life, Dustin?
Well, I don't know if it's really be considered special, but my very first vehicle was a 1984 Chevy S10. It was just a regular cab, long bed 4x4, and it was what I came to understand later on was probably one of the worst engines that General Motors produced. But in any case, I really remember that truck vividly, because it was my first. Plus, I learned basically all of my car control skills from driving that truck in the winter in Wisconsin.
Yeah, especially a truck with the light back end. Yeah.
And shortly after I got it, the transfer case took a dump, and I basically had it bypassed. We took some of the prop shafts out, and it was just 2-wheel drive for about 3 years. So again, to your point, you've got this light bed. It's just nothing but oversteer, and you get to a point where instead of just trying to drive straight, you learn how to just weave the back end back and forth down the road when you got 6 to 12 inches of snow, and then you just get around that way. And it was invaluable as far as teaching car control.
Cool. Now, here's a bit of an introspective question, Dustin. If you woke up tomorrow and you were a car parked in your shop there, not what you want to be, but how you perceive yourself as a vehicle, your attributes, what would Dustin be and why?
I am, without question, a Volkswagen GTI.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, I've owned 2, and I had a Mark II for a while, and then I when I got out of tech school and I needed to buy a toolbox and some tools, I sold it and paid the rest of my debt down for my tools. And then I had a Mark IV after I got established at the dealership. I bought it brand new, and I drove that car for 15 years, and I put nearly 200,000 miles on it before I sold it off. And I did everything with that car. It was it's small, it was quick, it was versatile, and it didn't put up too much of a fight when I asked it to do things it didn't really want to do.
Just like you, right?
I like to think that I don't put up much of a fight, but maybe maybe my wife would differ with me there.
Yeah, I'll have to give her a call and ask her. What year was that, the GTI you're thinking that you might have attributes to?
I still think I'm going to be more related to the Mark II.
Mark II? Okay.
Yeah, it's got a good mix of aside from the fuel injection, which was pretty problematic. It's got a good mix of modern or analog and digital, because it did have a little bit of OBD to it, not enough to really be terribly helpful, but it did have that that aspect to it, but then it was still very analog, where it was mechanical fuel injection with a little bit of electric help, and it was just a fun car to drive. I really wish I could find one that's in good shape again.
Yeah, so I think that version was mid 80s to early 90s, kind of. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. My wife and I, our first new car we bought together right after we got married, 1984, was a Jetta GLI, which was kind of the Jetta version of that, Golf. And wonderful car. We put way over 100,000 miles on that thing. And my first new car was a 79 Scirocco, first gen Scirocco, which is another great car. I put a little over 100,000 miles before I sold it, drove it all over the place. Great fun. Not a car you see around anymore. Most of them rusted away and long gone, but both two very reliable and fun cars for sure. Nice idea there. I like that. All right, we're entering what I call the last lap. I'm going to fire off some questions, kind of a lightning round here. Quick little blips of that Jetta, or I should say VW GTI Mark II throttle here. So here we go. Had me thinking about that old white car. That was cool. Wonder if it's still alive out there somewhere. Would you share one of your personal habits you believe has contributed to your many successes in life?
I'd tie this back to the running and training for those races. You've got to get up in the morning, and even if you don't want to, and you got to put the mileage in, you got to put the time in. And the same thing for anybody's career. If Malcolm Gladwell had said it takes approximately 10,000 man hours to become proficient and good at something. And if you don't put that time in, if you don't decide to get up and go at it every day, someone else can take that from you and take your opportunity. So I like to treat my job like I'm training for another race, where I've got to go at it as hard as I can every day.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on that with guest number 1,666 today.
There you go.
I figure each show probably maybe takes around, well, actually I might be there when I think about the time it takes to prepare, get it all done, record the show, and then edit the show. Maybe I'm there finally. Maybe I know what I'm doing. I hope so. I'm trying.
I've listened to a number of these podcasts, and I got to say, you're a very good interviewer, so I think you've got the time in.
Woohoo! There you go. I've been qualified by Dustin Wetmore, so I am.
For what that's worth.
I have my certificate. I'm hanging that on the wall, baby. Now, if I could arrange for you to have a drink or a meal with anyone in the automotive industry, living or deceased, who would it be?
I had a hard time with that one because I've got a couple of good ones, but I want to stray away from someone that's passed because that's an impossible thing to do. I want to talk to somebody that's still with us, and a guy that I want to talk to. I'd like to have a drink with Dyke Ridgely. He's the caretaker of I believe it's a Walton collection. I think they're in Arizona.
Yeah, talk about a nice collection of cars.
It is, and Mr. Ridgely has accumulated an incredible mass of knowledge when it comes to cars in general, but Ferrari specifically. I know he's written a number of articles in the past in Cavallino and various other publications, and he's just a wealth of knowledge that I would very much appreciate the opportunity to tap into. That's one thing that I really have learned over the years is you've got to tap into those that are experienced and that have come before you, because even if they're not directly related to what you're doing, they've got things to teach still.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have him be a guest on this show. I haven't quite figured out how to get to that guy, and I know the Waltons can be a little bit private. It's the same with the gentleman who takes care of Ralph Lauren's cars, that, Big Dad Garage, I think is what he calls his garage. Yeah, these guys that get to be around this stuff and care for it and learn about it know even so much more than the owners in many cases. All the little idiosyncrasies because the owners are busy with all their lives and so forth. Now, when it comes to automotive advice, and let's maybe relate this to collecting these fine automobiles, is there some great advice that you've been told in your life that you might want to pass along?
I would say to do as much digging and due diligence as you can. I mean, if you're referring to specifically acquiring a car, if you're looking for, let's say, for example, a California Spider, you want to trace back as much history as you can of all of the cars that were produced. and get to know them and understand what were the idiosyncrasies between the long chassis and the short chassis. Did some of them have specific histories that are more desirable than others? I mean, that just in this particular context, that would lead you towards the competition cars and then the alloy-bodied cars versus the steel-bodied cars. So that way you're armed with you've got enough information or more information than what you need to make a good decision, because the key is making good decisions. And if you know the history of the car that you're looking at, and there aren't any gaps in timeline, or there aren't any weird configuration changes that can't be explained physically or with paperwork, that may not be the one to go for. But on the other hand, if you like a project, then that could be a way to identify that car as a project.
You like to spend money, that would be a great choice.
Yeah, I'm gonna save that car.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've had some amazing collectors on the show here. You think about John Shirley, Chip Connor, some people that have some amazing, amazing cars, Fred Simeon, and they've all said the same thing, exactly what you said. You got to do your homework, and they've all said, I made major mistakes in buying certain cars, and it's because I didn't do my homework. It was usually earlier in their collecting career. They'd come into money so they could go out and buy what they want, but they didn't take the time to fully vet and really learn about the vehicles, and those cars ended up coming and going, and in many cases not being the right choice for sure. Now, when it comes to resources, is there one in particular that is a go-to for you that you'd suggest others listening might seek out and have some fun with?
From the technical, from the hands-on perspective of looking after a car or even restoring a car, I find myself going to Carroll Smith's books quite frequently. Carroll Smith wrote a number of books on preparing racing cars. There's Engineer to Win, Tune to Win, Prepare to Win, Drive to Win. While we're working on road cars, they were built by a company that was primarily geared to build racing cars. So I like to try to carry those philosophies over into how we restore cars here and treat them because realistically, if you look at some of these cars, they're slow moving aircraft. There isn't a lot of difference between them. So I like to go back to that and read certain sections that are applicable to what we're working on. And if it's not something that doesn't already ring familiar, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. I should make sure I incorporate that in this process, or make sure I keep an eye out for that when we're doing that service. There's that, and McMaster Car is a fantastic resource for parts and pieces, and it gives you some good descriptions so that if you're picking hoses out, that you're picking a hose out that's applicable to maybe chemicals or fuels, or if it's just air or water. That's a great resource as well.
Yeah, both great. Carroll Smith's books are awesome. Well, nice segue into my next question, and that is there a particular book you might suggest our listeners read?
Well, this one's more, I wouldn't say entertaining, but it was entertaining. Okay. I got quite a bit out of it. I come from a different perspective on it. It was Luca Diamante wrote a book on Enzo Ferrari, and I want to say it was like 999 pages, but just an incredible book on the man. And he really was able to dive about as deep as you could go into how he functioned as a person, his story, the challenges that he had to overcome, both in his personal life and his professional life. It gave me a better sense of how the cars were actually produced and the purposes that they were produced for. It gave me appreciation of his single-mindedness when it came to winning, and kind of inspired me in a way to look at what we do here every day to make sure that we're doing it to the best of our ability and treat it like a competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Entrusted very special cars to you guys to make sure that they continue on in the reality of what they were and what they were meant to be. All right, Dustin, we are up to the checkered flag here, and this last question might be a bit of a doozy for you. It could be easy. We'll see where we go. I'm going to buy you a very cool collector car today. Anything in the world. If you guys restored it, it's going to be yours. If it's in someone else's garage, it's going to be yours. But there's some rules, as you know, being a listener here, that you have to abide by. You can't sell it to buy a bunch of other toys with. I want you to drive it and enjoy it. No garage queens, no dust collectors allowed here. But here's the hard part. It's the only one cool collector car you can have. So it's got to tick a lot of boxes. So what am I buying for Dustin Wetmore today?
I've narrowed it down to a long wheelbase California Spider.
Oh, okay.
I won't even be picky about headlight configuration. You can do open light or covered light. I'm okay with both.
You're okay with it? You're not picky. Nice. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Yeah. It's such a beautiful car, iconic car, one of these cars that's been made famous so many times in so many ways. Of course, most people think of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Of course, most of us now know that wasn't a real one, but the concept was there. The long wheelbase, let me ask you this. I mean, there's so many different configurations of these things. And when you look at a bunch of them lined up, and I've been lucky enough to see not all of them, but many lined up, and you go, okay, each one's a little different. Why the long wheelbase over the short wheelbase?
Well, a few reasons. One, I believe the long wheelbase is just a bit more stable at speed.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they feel when you've got the shock absorbers tuned properly, provided that they're the Hudale lever shocks. The chassis itself is so stable and so smooth. It's such a pleasure to drive. And also from an aesthetic standpoint, the overall concept of the car stretched over a longer wheelbase, to my eye, it works better. It doesn't feel as cramped. It's allowed to kind of spread itself out.
I would agree.
As long as the top is down. The top is really ornamental, and I think really just keeps it dry in case you get caught out in the rain.
Yeah.
And another nice thing about those cars is really, aside from maybe the Mille Miglia, they're event eligible for basically any driving event in Europe or in the States. Yeah. So it's a great dual purpose car.
They're beautiful. Now, so that I get you the right one, because there are a few of them out there these days, is there a color or a chassis that you might be particularly looking at, since you're a stickler for authenticity?
Well, wow.
I know.
That's a tough one. 1451 GT, that one I really do. I've driven that car, and that was my benchmark car when we finished that restoration. That one's got competition history. It has Le Mans history.
Is that the one with the big number 16 on the side, the silver car?
It is silver.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that driving on the coast during the Pebble Beach tour.
Yeah, Bob Grossman raced that at Le Mans, and I've got some really good pictures from that race that we used to when we restored the car. And from what I can tell from the photographs, it really wasn't done. They had seats in it, and that was about it.
That was it, yeah.
But we had basically a full upholstery. They're pretty Spartan to begin with, but it did have a full upholstery in it. And I drove that car with Wayne, and we took it out, and he said, okay, this is it. This is how this car is supposed to feel. And, he would explain to me how I should be feeling the bumps and what type of brake pressures I should be feeling in my foot. And then, you reach down, you check the free plate of the clutch and the brake to make sure they're set, because once everything heats up, those clearances are going to change a little bit.
Right.
And then he got out, and I hopped in, I took it out. And so, the seat time is really important. And I'll remember that drive and how that car felt. And then I compared it to basically every California that we've had in here so far. There's 1055 is also a good one. I like that car a lot too. Right now it's gray with a tobacco interior. That was a fun car to do. I got to speak with the original owner. Steven Deck was the original owner from Texas, and he asked me if we were painting it the original color combination. I said no. The owner of the car would prefer to go gray, and he said, well, it was never gray. I said, well, that's true. We talked about it. I sent him spray samples, and it just wasn't for him. Like, oh, okay. So the color combination, I think I really liked the. It was Ross. I believe it was Rosso Rubino Metallizzato,
mm-hmm.
and the upholstery color would have been natural. So it was basically just an undyed, tanned leather. It was actually fairly common for the long wheelbase cars. I want to say there were like 5 or 6 of them that were done in that combination. But I've seen it in the prototype. If I remember the chassis number correctly, 0769. When that car was done, it was that combination, and I thought, yep, that's it.
That's it. Nice choices, my friend. Beautiful, beautiful cars. Absolutely spectacular. Well, thanks for giving me a couple options here. So when I start dialing for dollars, dialing for cars, maybe I might have trouble prying some of these out of some of these guys' hands for you. But I'll do my best. I promise. That's all I can promise. Dustin, you've taken me on an awesome ride. This has been great. I really want to thank you for sharing your life and your journey with the Cars Yeah listeners today. Before I let you go, though, could you offer us one little parting piece of wisdom or guidance before you rip off into the sunset in that long wheelbase Cal Spider?
Well, one thing I keep telling myself when stuff gets a little challenging, just keep digging, just keep going. I've from the cycling aspect, I've told my wife several times, just keep pedaling. And the worst thing you can do is stop trying.
Yeah, absolutely. Just keep trying, keep pedaling, keep moving forward. Use Dustin as your inspiration if you're trying to stop some kind of unhealthy habit that we talked about at the beginning of this, smoking, drinking, whatever it might be. He's a good example that it can be done. What's the best way for people to keep up with you and Motion Products Incorporated?
Well, we do have a website that's mpi-ferrari.com. We just rebuilt it over the winter and launched it. Beautiful, by
the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, great job.
That's pretty fresh, and Kylie's working on our Instagram page.
Yep.
There is a Facebook page that we're updating on, and we're putting blogs to. The neat thing there is we're going to start building content on some of the tougher things that we've had to build. I know we're working on a brake dust shield for the Maserati A6 GCSs. How we came about making a pair of those for restoration. And then otherwise, there's email dwetmore at mpi-ferrari.com and or just give me a call at 920-725-4688.
There you go. And I wanted to give a shout out to a Cars Yeah listener, Amanda Marie, who suggested that we connect.
Yeah.
Very nice of her. And listeners, you can find everything that Dustin has shared on his show notes page. I encourage you to check out this company, MPI. Fantastic work. Their website's beautiful. Follow them on Instagram. You can see all the cool projects, Facebook, everything that they do out there. And you can see how much fun Dustin and his team are having. You can dream of having one of these wonderful cars in your garage someday. Dustin, thanks for being so generous today with your time, your expertise, and your enthusiasm and passion. Until you and I talk again, my friend, and they let us all out of lockdown, I'll see you down the road.
I appreciate the opportunity, Mark.
This was great. If you're listening to Cars Yeah, you've probably spent some time working on your favorite ride. But how confident are you working on your finances? You may be able to rebuild a fuel injection system, but can you decipher the details of a mutual fund? If you're like me, investments, insurance, annuities, budgeting, and other financial concepts may seem a bit daunting, but what if I told you there's a book that describes these subjects and more in an easy-to-read and a very humorous way? My friend Chris Kimball, CFP, a longtime sponsor and past guest here on Cars Yeah, has written that book, and it's titled The Saga of Ike and Penny, a couple's humorous journey through the confusing world of finance. It's a fun look at things you need to know, everything from investing to effective ways to get rid of credit card debt, and it's probably the only book on finance with a VMAX on the front cover and a classic Mini Cooper on the back. The book's available at Amazon for just $10, and this book will dramatically improve the direction of your financial future. I gave copies to each of my children. All securities are through Money Concepts Capital Corp. Christopher Kimball Financial Services is not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corp. Get your copy, The Saga of Ike and Penny, today.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.